Hello, everyone, and welcome to another teaching that's being presented by 100 Miles. I'm Lericia Harris, and we thank you for joining us to talk about lighting today and why it's important for us to minimize light pollution in our community. We have some special guests that'll be joining us, and I'll introduce them here in a second, but want to just give you a brief overview of who 100 Miles is. We are a governmental organization based, of course, in Brunswick, Georgia. And our mission is to preserve and protect Georgia's 100-mile coast through education, advocacy, and community engagement. And so, what you'll hear from us today are some of what we believe. They're reflective of our beliefs and some of the comments that we were able to submit as it pertains to the Glenn County zoning. Which brings me to the next point, which is the event purpose. So during our last teaching, we broke down with our executive director, Megan, and also our planner, Hannah, about Glenn County's zoning ordinance, the draft ordinance, which is a very important blueprint for economic growth as it pertains to our environment and our community. And so, one aspect of zoning is specifically lighting, which we will break down today. And our panelists, again, will discuss various issues that pose a significant threat to our environment and wildlife. So, again, we'll hear things about light pollution, dark sky, artificial lighting, and sky glow. And those who will be bringing this information to us will be Catherine Ridley, who is the Vice President of Education and Communications here at 100 Miles. She's also the coordinator for the St. Simons Island Sea Turtle Project. And we also have the Mid-Coast Advocate, Susan Inman. She covers Liberty County, McIntosh counties. So thank you, ladies, for being here and being able to share your knowledge. And with that, Catherine, I will hand it over to you so we can get started.
Thank you so much, Lericia, and thank you everyone for joining us. We're really excited to be here talking about this. I wanted to start by just posing the question, which is a really big question. Why does artificial lighting matter? And what are the things that we lose when we lose our dark skies? That's really what we're talking about today. Of course, we could really fill an entire presentation, maybe a dissertation just on this question, but as a high-level overview, we know that artificial lighting, particularly those artificial lights that appear bright white to our eyes, have very negative and often devastating consequences for our wildlife, including migratory birds, which can be drawn to the lights of bright buildings instead of being able to find safe passage, as well as many insect populations. You know, we ask the question, where have our fireflies gone? Some say lightning bugs, as well as mammals, many other species. And then when we think about our own human health, there's significant implications from lighting, as well as just our enjoyment and our experience of the outdoors. Humans actually have our own natural night vision that allows us to navigate and see so much more, whether we're on the beach or inland, whether that's stars or bioluminescence, but so many times we mask that with artificial light. So let's go down to the next slide. Not here in coastal Georgia, but I thought we'd start with a beautiful picture of a sunrise in the horizon. Just kidding, that's actually sky glow from the city of Los Angeles, 90 miles away. So we often think about light pollution as point source, an individual bulb, but this cumulative impact of lighting creates what we call sky glow, and that has similar negative impacts across our coast. If you look at the next picture, that is Kyle Morgan's a great photographer who took a picture of the Sydney Linear Bridge, which is lit up in turtle-friendly lighting. But if you peek behind that, you can see bright white lights from the Port of Brunswick. And we know that our lighting, the choices that we make inland in Brunswick, can have impacts on sea turtle misorientations as far away as Sapelo Island and really carry across the coast. So let's talk then about Glenn County and what the issue is here, as well as beaches across the state and some of the work we have underway. Sea turtles, you've probably heard the slogan, sea turtles dig the dark, right? And that's harkening back to the idea that sea turtles evolved on a dark beach. They nest and hatch at night primarily. And so those nesting mothers instinctually choose these dark nesting sites at the base of dunes or in the dunes that blocks out the ambient lighting below from the sky. And then when those hatchlings hatch, people say, oh, they follow the moon. Well, whether it's a full moon or no moon at all, we have the turtles when they hatch at night, they go towards the brightest part of the horizon, which is meant to be the reflection of the sky on the beach, on the ocean below. So let's look a little bit about what's happening. It's nesting season right now. May through October is the seasonal windows that we talk about nesting and hatching across Georgia's coast. Now, it's sometimes hard, I find, to get people to really visualize or understand what lighting can do. We have, thank you, we have an issue where lighting impacts both the adult females and the hatchlings, as we talked about. Now, the nesting females are just going to select, if they can, away from those brightly lit areas. So people ask us, why don't you have more nests on St. Simon's? Lighting contributes to that reason. When they come up, and you can see a brightly lit area there at the bottom, which is a stretch of beach a couple nesting seasons ago, where you can see both the individual bulbs and the glow from those homes. We also sometimes have what we call false crawls or non-nesting emergences, which are when the turtles come up looking for a good place to nest. And there's many reasons why they might false crawl, but lighting certainly is one of them. Either someone walking by with a brightly lit artificial flashlight, or just the light on the beach. If you think about it, some people are like, well, so what? They false crawled, they didn't find a nesting site, they'll come back again. Well, sometimes they do, but it's a tremendous expenditure of energy. And if they can't find a place to nest, then they may drop their eggs in the ocean. Now, with hatchlings, we track what we call misorientations, which is when turtles crawl away, the baby turtles crawl away from where they're supposed to go in the wrong direction towards generally artificial light sources. This is a nest, an entire nest that we had monitored throughout the entire season a couple of years ago. They all crawled towards the bright lights on East Beach. Moving on, so this is a good example too, another graphic that shows the choice that they have. Again, we want them to go towards the light on the horizon into the ocean so that they can, at 0 days old, make a very long swim to the Sargasso Sea. But oftentimes on our beaches and others, they're crawling in the wrong direction towards artificial lights. Now, Glenn County does have an existing sea turtle ordinance in place. So let's look at that slide. It's nothing new. It has a stated goal of protecting sea turtles, both nesting turtles and their hatchlings, and protecting the habitat on which they rely. Unfortunately, its current language, which has been on the book for going on 4 decades now, does none of those things. So we have an existing ordinance that we're working very hard to educate people about, but without the current regulations, the current advancements in both lighting technology and our understanding of sea turtle behavior, it's really not doing anything for us. And we're just wasting our time, and we're wasting our sea turtles' lives, quite frankly. So to illustrate this point, think about where you were 40 years ago. How has your hairstyle changed, the technology that you used? This picture is actually more than 40 years old, but it's a late 1970s model car seat that I think was used for many years after that. Best we had at the time, right? And it was good to put in place, but times have changed. Technology has changed. I wouldn't put my baby in that, even if that was me from many years ago. So let's talk then about where do we go from here? We are very fortunate to have been working with Glenn County. We've had some great conversations going back more than 5 years now. And here we are entering yet another nesting season. So when we talk about lighting ordinances, there's 3 criteria that we want to think about that are not currently in place in our antiquated ordinance. That's the quantity, the quality, and the directionality of light. We have our sea turtle scientists. This is really a matter of listening to the scientists. It's not rocket science. We have a list of recommendations and really regulations that need to be in place. And it's easy to get wrong if you don't have a background, but it's nothing that we don't see in communities up and down our coast, the southeastern coast in Florida. People are used to this, and every day on the beach they say, why doesn't Glenn County do the same thing that we see in these other communities and keep our beaches dark? Sea turtles see the full visible spectrum of light, but they're less disturbed by some of the longer wavelengths. So those are the ones that are going to appear red or amber or orange. You see that glow on the top of the bridge, for example. And those are the ones that disturb them the less. So that is one example of many criteria that need to be updated in the ordinance. We only have to look to Jekyll Island right here in Glenn County to find a very strong ordinance that would be advantageous for us all to follow really across our coast, but we're working on it here in Glenn County. Jekyll is a state park, but if you look at their beach, it's a developed beach. They have hotels, they have private homes, they have rental condos, and they've been able to implement these really common sense policies that we need throughout Glenn County, throughout our coast. We do a lot of work. A lot of people like to say to me, well, it's really about education. I'll just add that our team works tirelessly. Even my 5-year-old son goes out with me and contributes, and we go door to door and we have great conversations with individual beachgoers, with homeowners, with condo associations. We have resources to provide to all of those. But all of the data suggests that education on its own without a very strong ordinance behind it is not going to solve the problem. And I can attest that that's been the case for as long as I've been working here in sea turtles in Georgia, which is going back more than 20 years. So we need beachgoers, we need homeowners to do their part, but we need that strong ordinance in place now. If you look at the calendar, it's May 14th. Sea turtle nesting season is underway. We're waiting for our first nest on St. Simon's, but every day I wake up hoping today's the day. And I think it's time that we pose the question, and that's one of the reasons we're here today. Are sea turtles, are our wildlife a marketing slogan that we're going to put on billboards? Or are they something that we truly care about in our county that we're willing to stand up and protect? And if that's the case, it's time to take action today. So that is the beach issue, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Susan, to talk about how you can protect the light no matter where you are.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Like Lericia mentioned in the beginning when she introduced me, I actually am 1 county to 2 counties north of Glenn County, but it's still on the coast. And as you know, Georgia has 14 barrier islands, and but you can only take 2 of those counties to drive to the beaches. And so when I look at McIntosh County or even Liberty County, you think about how can we help with lighting, or why is lighting important for us too? And it's many different reasons. And one reason just happened a few nights ago was the Northern Lights. First of all, never thought I'd see Northern Lights in Georgia. Just thought when I was back home visiting my family in South Dakota and Minnesota. But I was thrilled. And I, of course, texted all of my coworkers because it was late at night. And, I was kind of like, sorry about the late night text, but it's worth it. Y'all get outside and go check it out. But they actually had a really hard time finding the Northern Lights, even though I'm standing in my backyard in McIntosh County in between Darien and Eulonia. You have to probably look up Eulonia on a map. But it was really dark and the sky was pink and it was just wonderful, but a lot of my coworkers couldn't see it. And that has a lot to do with not only being a little bit further south, which made it harder, but also with the artificial light that was happening already. And so you kind of think, well, what can we do just as an individual, or even the average cities that don't have sea turtles, but you still have wildlife. When you talk about our coastal counties, or even if you get closer to Atlanta, you still have wildlife, and they are affected by artificial light, and so are the plants too. You can actually extend pollen season if you have lighting shining on some of your trees, so it actually trigger your allergies a little bit further. And the kind of map or image that we have up on the screen right now can show you how lighting can affect the night sky, but also wildlife and your cities around you. So if you have what's called a hood on your light, it actually directs your light to the ground. And so that's where you need it. You don't really need to light up the sky when you're trying to walk around, or if your pets are going outside at night to use the restroom. Not use the restroom, just going outside to use the tree, basically. And but if you don't have it, you're lighting up the sky and you're actually losing the stars. You're actually losing the ability to see the stars. And when I talk to my neighbors or everyone or anyone that visits Liberty County, they're always or McIntosh County, they're surprised by the stars that they can still see. And we can still see the Milky Way. We can still see the Big Dipper and all these other different constellations, but probably not for much longer. Development is coming in, and that's fine. But there's things we can do to help protect the sky, save the sky, really. And it has a lot of different reasons of why you want to do that. Besides just wildlife, it also affects your health and your ability to actually sleep. You know, it feels really good to have a full night's sleep. And when we don't have it, it's definitely affects your health. So that is one way that cities can protect their residents, is to have hood on their lights. But also, if we flip to the next slide, each individual can actually have different ways to protect their lighting at their homes. And these are the 5 principles. And this is from the Dark Sky International, which is a great website to check out, of all different types to ways to preserve lighting, preserve the night sky. But also there's some places where you can target to go see those really dark skies and see the stars or constellations, or even if we see the Northern Lights again. And so these are the 5 principles. So is it useful? Is the light that, is it needed? Sometimes you put up a light just because you think it should go there, but does it really need to go there? And then targeted. Targeted is like when we were at the slide before, we were talking about a hooded light. Because again, why do you light up the top of your sky or tops of the trees when you need it to figure out where you're walking, for safety? But also targeted is for safety too. So it's helpful to have targeted lighting, and it's also saves you money because you're not wasting energy going up to the sky. And so that's helpful. A lot of times people think that it is safer to have the brightest light. But in actuality, if you're looking at a light and you have to put your hand up like this to block it so you can see the ground, that means your light is too bright or it's not hooded. And so you can replace it quite easily when you go to Home Depot. All of your lights bulbs that you can buy are on the same shelf or in the same area, and the price point is the same. And so that's something that's really neat, is to make a positive change for a darker sky. It's not going to cost you more money. It's actually an equal swap or a switch. And then the third point is low level. Again, I was talking about, is brighter better? Not always. And then also controlled, something that is easy to do now. And you can actually get light bulbs that are triggered by movement. And so you don't have to put in a whole new elements in your house to figure out for your outdoor lighting that it can cost you more, because if you can't do it on your own, sometimes you have to hire someone. When you hire someone, that costs more money. So realistically, there are these equal cost changes that you can make and have a better way to view the night sky. And then also when you're at the store, there's so many different colors of light that you can buy. And sometimes you just don't know that you're buying a really bright light compared to a lower color light. And that actually affects your nighttime viewing also. And if you go to the next slide, Lericia, and this is kind of what it's showing, of how this is a live map of the artificial light at night. And so you can see Savannah is purple. The purple is like extreme lighting. Red, it's still not great. And your yellow, you can still see your dark skies, but green and blue is like your cool lighting and where you're gonna have your best view of your night skies. And this happens to be more of your rural areas. And as you see, Brunswick, it's pretty hot. caught in artificial light, and you can see how far it actually spreads. Artificial light at night spreads pretty far. So you're kind of thinking, well, Little St. Simons, which is, if you look at Brunswick, it's above the W, essentially, like roughly, right? It's an eco island. So it's ecotourism. So it has very little lighting, but yet look at the effects from inland or mainland is having on that little island. And again, if you're talking sea turtles, that really affects the sea turtles. So Little St. Simons is doing their job on keeping their lighting controlled or down facing to the ground, but yet their neighbors aren't really helping them out. So we can make a difference. And this applies to Atlanta too. So if you scroll out, you can kind of see all of these spots that are heavy in light, which means that if everybody does their due diligence in changing your light bulbs or doing at least one of the 5 principles of your artificial lighting, we can make a difference. We can change this. And then eventually, if the people want it, we can change your ordinances and make that effect to be better neighbors, to have better wildlife viewings, and to lessen our pollen season. I keep going back to that because it's some of these summers, like with the pine, it gets kind of rough. But it's just something that we can all do together as neighbors and come together. And also, one night sky, you know, you kind of talk about, well, where is a good space to go look at our dark sky? And if you look at the Okefenokee, that is one of our dark skies. It actually has dark sky designations where you can go there and just experience the sky like you really haven't experienced before, I guarantee you. And that's something that we're going to try to do in McIntosh also, is to get this type of designation for a community and try to change that so we can keep our dark sky and protect it, so our generations that moving forward will also be able to experience this too. Because like I said, the Milky Way can't be seen in Brunswick, or it has to be a very, very clear night. You know, there's those exceptions, and sometimes you can on the beaches in Glenn County, but again, it's tough because of all the artificial light. If you kind of tuck yourself in away from the light and into a shadow, you might be able to experience it, or with your camera, you might be able to pick it up too. So there's a lot of ways to look at it, look at the sky and experience it, but also it is better for your health. It is better for your wildlife. And there's ways around it. We can have light and we can have it on timers. We can have it pointed to the ground, save money, and just still experience it in a way that we have been able to since we were kids. And I think if we have any questions, we can move on. Okay. And so you can talk to Lericia, you know, about Glenn County ordinances. You can talk with me about McIntosh and how we're trying to move forward. And also too, you can think of dark skies as a way to bring in ecotourism. And McIntosh, there's actually some Airbnbs like Emma's Driftwood Farm that they not only focus on fishing during the day, but also at night, they really focus on not having a whole lot of artificial light. So you can listen for your nighttime birds, you can view the night sky, and just have an experience not only during the day, but also at night. And those are kind of some of the aspects that a few Airbnbs are working on in McIntosh to bring people in and for ecotourism. Because if you think about it, if you're a city official, why not bring someone in that can do something at night and, you know, go to a park with a telescope? It's, you know, to me, sounds pretty fun, but it's, you know, kind of a nerdy thing, but I like it. But those are the people, you know, you really want to visit and explore, not only during the day, but during the night, and not only stay in Airbnbs or hotels, but use our restaurants, shop local, all of that. So it's just a great initiative to have better lighting. And if it's in your ordinances, you can protect from businesses having bad lighting, but also your residents. It's like I said, it's an easy fix. It's easy fix you can get at Lowe's and Home Depot.
We have a couple of questions for both of you ladies, and I'll go back to the previous map in case it's beneficial for the question directed to you, Susan. What are the next steps for dark sky designation in McIntosh?
Right. So we are, there's a pretty big application that we have to go through, but it's just proving that we have not only the residents behind it and that businesses are behind it, And there's photographers that love to come to McIntosh to take photos and show that there's a need for it. And so we're going through that application process, and it just takes time because I have to do a lighting. What is it called? I have to like look at all the lighting and rate it, but also prove that people are basically in it to win it, that there's education behind it, that it's not just a one-time deal. And so finding people that if they want to start a club, or if there's like the school wants to be a part of it, if they want to start a club, just to show that this is not just a one-time deal. So that's where we're at, and talking about with residents. And the city is also interested in having the conversation because they are starting to update some of their lighting. And it's also one thing I really appreciate about this whole conversation about replace lighting. It doesn't have to happen all at once. You can do it gradually because, again, it's a cost. Like lighting, if you're going to replace things, that's a cost. And it's not about necessarily replacing it all at once. It's doing it gradually. Like when you're doing an update, think about it. Because when you're at the store, like I said, or if you're a city and you're looking at what type of lightings to get, there's options. And that's something that we haven't had that many options before, but we do now because it is a thing. It is a concern. And so that's what's happening right now.
And Catherine, the question for you is where are they in the zoning ordinance update? And what are the next opportunities for the public to weigh in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, we're going on hopes and dreams and promises at this point. This has been a process that many people started following more than 5 years ago in Glenn County, a comprehensive process that doesn't just deal with the lighting ordinance, but all of our the entire zoning revision. At a recent meeting, the chair of the zoning rewrite committee made the comment that he really hasn't heard a lot from the public, and we need our advocates, whether you care about sea turtles and lights, whether you care about lighting in your neighborhood, or whether you care about density in St. Simons, whatever your issue is, we need to be speaking out to say this process is important to our community. We are following it, and we want you to take action. They've gotten very far, and we're grateful. I'm grateful, and our team is grateful for some really productive conversations. The committee has reviewed a lot of the information that our Sea Turtle team has shared with them, the updated requirements. And I believe, hopefully we're moving that draft forward. I know they're working very hard on it, but a draft language in an email chain or on paper isn't going to change what I'm finding on the beaches this summer. And so my hope is that whether we take the issue of lighting and look at it individually now, or whether it's part of this overall conversation, which seems to make sense, that there needs to be urgency behind that. That's only going to happen, though, if our commissioners, if the zoning committee sees that the public is watching and paying attention. So there are ways to do that. There's a zoning email that you can share your own comments for. Writing letters to the editor are a great tool to show what the community, where the community's pulse is. If you're following 100 miles in our action alerts, which of course we hope you are for a variety of reasons, we're going to be sharing very targeted opportunities to make your voice heard on World Sea Turtle Day and other days. I'd also encourage people to follow the St. Simons Island Sea Turtle Project page. One really simple step, I often will share, or we will often share on our Turtle Project page, a picture of a lighting and talk about lighting. And again, it's really hard, I think, for people to understand what it is we're looking at, why it's so important. But sharing that information, making that go viral in our community, starting that conversation about what it is, what the solution is really important. I think there are lots of ways. We just need to speak up and speak loud. And at 100 miles, we're going to keep you updated on what the next steps are and where you can engage. But don't just wait for us. We don't want those communications to come, from 100 miles. Our entire community has a stake in this. And so we want people to share those directly.
And one last quick question, either of you can answer it. Does lighting affect jellyfish?
That's a great question. So when we talk about some of our species that live in the ocean, many of them produce their own light. And so for us to be able to see them, that bioluminescence is triggered a lot of times by movement. If you're going through the water or if you're kicking your feet on the sand, I'll guarantee you're not going to see a lot of it if you have a big bright flashlight on the on the beach. I do not know about the health implications for an animal like jellyfish in the ocean. It hasn't risen to a species of concern, but it's a great question.
And we want to just again, thank everyone for joining us. And quickly before we wrap up here, Catherine mentioned our recommendations, mentioned our thoughts regarding Glenn County zoning and the status. If you also want to keep up or remain up to date with that, you can utilize the website that you see on your screen here, 100miles.org/Glenn zoning. Everything that we are doing, our comments, even the website for you to submit comments, all of that information can be found on our Glenn zoning page, which is on our website. Again, please feel free to email myself, Lericia Harris. I'm the South Coast Advocate covering Glenn and Camden counties. We have Susan, of course, who is our Mid Coast Advocate, and then Catherine, who is our VP in Communications and Education. So please feel free to email us with your questions, comments, or concerns, and we will make sure that we respond back to you accordingly. We thank you all for joining us as it pertains to our teach-in where we discuss lighting. You will be able to see this again because it will live on our Facebook page and it'll also be found on our YouTube page. So please make sure you share it, share the information that was given to you today, and we'll see you next time for our next teach-in. Thank you.